I'm Jaine Fenn, author of the Hidden Empire series and various other far future science fiction novels and short stories.
You mentioned earlier on in the guest talk we just had that you started writing role-playing games. So.
I did, yes, yeah. I did.
How did you go from that to writing novels?
I was writing short stories at the same time as I was writing the games and running the games, but the amount of effort I need to put in to make a really good role-playing game that could be something, it could be equivalent to what you're going to actually put in for a novel. I did one game once where I ran a campaign for a couple of years, and it was a sort of vaguely like Call of Cthulhu every week for a couple of years, and then the culmination of it was a freeform with everybody in costume where there were 50 players and I hired a steam train, and that frankly was as much effort as writing a novel. But having done that and explored that, I then finally thought I'd better start turning what I want to do into novels. I was writing at the same time, but then I sort of slacked off on the games and started to concentrate on learning the craft of writing, because that is a different skill. Well, I started to seriously put some effort into my writing around about the late 90s when I went on this week-long course called One Step Beyond, where I learnt a lot about the craft of writing. And then I was devoting more of my time to writing fiction than to writing games, and a couple of years later I had my first short story publication. And then I started to get more and more serious. As you get stuff published, you have to put more hours in, so it becomes more like a job, you become more work about it.
So far I've only read the one book.
That's okay.
Principles of Angels. Where did that idea come from? Where did the universe spring from?
The universe kind of grew out of the original plot idea, which was asking the question, what if an assassin had to kill someone that they knew and that they'd cared for? And what sort of emotional thing would be going on there? Which led me on to what situation would you have to be in to have an assassin who couldn't turn down a job, which led me on to why are they killing this person? And then the rest of it accreted around it. It's an odd kind of a setup in Principles of Angels, because it's a democracy by assassination. So the angels, all they're doing is they're fulfilling the will of the people. You can actually vote to have a politician assassinated, which arguably is wish fulfillment.
Yeah. You said you travel a lot. Where have you been, and how did where you've gone fit into getting your ideas for the novel?
I don't go for foreign holidays every year.
No.
I go to North Wales a lot, which ended up in my second book, which is actually the countryside of North Wales is just so dramatic, and it's got a fascinating history. I read up on things like the drovers, the old drovers' roads, and the kind of culture of taking all the animals to market once a year, people you would only see once a year, and all those sort of relationships. But I did go around the world a few years ago, and I went to the South Sea Islands, and I went to Indonesia, and I went to Peru, and I went to New Zealand. And I've taken quite a lot of stuff from sort of South Sea Islands and put those into the third book, Guardians of Paradise, because I think all writers, and particularly all science fiction writers, anything that happens to them will surface later. They might not even consciously do it. I mean, I consciously took South Sea culture, and I consciously took the landscape of North Wales, and I put them in books. But I frequently find I'm writing something and I think, yes, that's come from this experience that I had, however many years ago. We recycle reality shamelessly.
So far you've done, what, how many novels have you? 5
completed ones that are out. I'm working on another one, and I've got another 2 in progress, one of which I'm concentrating on. And there will be 9 in the Hidden Empire series, but there are other stories to be told as well.
Right. How long have you been a science fiction fan, would you say?
Since I first saw Doctor Who, I think.
Yeah.
I got into science fiction via media because I grew up in a house with no books, shockingly, which I know. So I would see something on the television or I'd see a film, and then I'd think, I want more, and I'd go to Smith's and say, is there a book of that? I got into non-media science fiction and fantasy initially from one book, which was A Wizard of Earthsea, Ursula Le Guin, and it was the edition that's got the main character, I think his name is, changing into the Sparrowhawk on the front. It's sort of very, almost like stained glass. And I saw that book in a bookshop in Wookey Hole. I remember it that clearly when I was 9 years old. And I picked it up and I just thought, I want to read this. Because I was quite conservative in my taste. I would read novelisations, but I didn't really know what else was out there. And at that point I got into fantasy, and then mainly through Ursula Le Guin, and also having had quite a lot of science fiction that I'd read that was novelisations. By the time I was about 13 or 14, I'd moved on from fantasy after a big Lord of the Rings obsession, and started to get more into science fiction at that point.
The cover of the Ursula Le Guin book.
Yes.
How much do you think a cover will influence the sales of a book?
Oh, I wish I knew the answer, and I bet my publisher wishes they knew the answer. But I think science fiction books tend to have quite a narrow range of covers, because it's nearly always spaceship scenery, and a lot of mine are, not all of them are, but a lot of mine are, even if technically speaking that's not what's going on. And same with fantasy, you've got hooded bloke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think our covers aren't as interesting as they could be, but if the booksellers and the publishers don't want something interesting, they just want something that's like whatever was there before, whatever sold before, annoyingly.
Do you have anything you'd like to say to your fans?
Keep reading my stuff, everybody else's stuff. I hope you enjoy what I do. I mean, I do it anyway, but it's really nice that there are people that actually want to read the stories that I tell, and I still love getting emails and stuff from people who've enjoyed things that I've done.
Thanks very much for speaking to me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.